crippling anxiety. It's my dad's fault. Just kidding. So this is a story about the man, the myth, the legend. His name is Glenn Steinhauer. So never has there been a more epic and long-standing conflict than that of between my dad and the inanimate object. Growing up, we always had 2 remote controls in the house. One was and it's not because we had 2 TVs. One was the brand new remote, and the other one was the one that the brand new remote had replaced because the other remote had been broken during one of my dad's patented fits of rage, either because that remote, A, wasn't working as well as he wanted it to, or B, any number of Philly sports teams had blown the victory in the last minute. I know you're familiar with this. Needless to say, 1993 was a rough year in the Steinhauer house. Thank you, Mitch Williams, for that. I remember this one time I was in the kitchen, or no, I was in the living room and my dad was in the kitchen, and I heard him drop a fork, and he bends over and he's sort of grumbling to himself, going to pick it up, and somehow or another he managed to drop another fork at the same time. And so his response to that was he picked up all the forks in the drawer and he tossed them all to the ground and he shouted at them, "Go join your friends." Another time we were playing hearts, just a fun family game of hearts, and I got a run on my dad, and that clinched the win for me. And I was super pumped because I know I'd earned it, because Glenn never let the children win. So I was super excited about that. My dad wasn't. He took his very full hand of cards, he threw them up into the air, they hit the ceiling, they come cascading down, falling on the ceiling fan and amongst my siblings and I whisper to my dad lovingly, say, it's just a game, Dad, it's just a game. To which he replies, "It's not a game, Sarah, it's my life." So when my dad was mad, he was like quite a wordsmith, if you will. Do you guys know, have you ever heard the phrase, "Go piss up a rope and watch it shrink"? Because I'm still to this day trying to figure out if that's like some kind of colloquialism that he's adopted over the years, or if he just like straight manufactured that shit on his own. I don't know. I'm not sure. But I need to be clear, he never laid a hand on us. All of his anger was definitely directed at the inanimate objects themselves, for sure. But just for the sake of like keeping the house intact and ensuring that there was a working remote, my siblings and I really tried to keep the peace. So you can imagine the trepidation I had. I was 25 years old, and I had just finished a year teaching in South Korea. And about 10 days before I was due to fly home, I found out that I was pregnant to a Canadian who wasn't my boyfriend at the time. And my plan was to fly home and sort of graciously ask my parents if it would be okay for me to kind of crash with them for a couple of weeks until I sort of figured out my scene and found out the optimal scenario for my particular situation. And I had a lot of trust. So I flew home, and the morning after I got home, it just so happened to be my dad's first day of retirement. And just a really great coincidence. And the man had been looking forward to this and talking about it for, I shit you not, like 10 years at least. So he wakes up and he's eating his first breakfast of the day, and he's in his robe and he has his bowl of cereal, and I sort of usher him into the living room, which I strategically picked because there's a lot of soft objects in the living room. And I asked him to sit down, and I wanted to tell him as quickly as I could with as much brevity as possible because I know Glenn really appreciates that. So I said it all in like sort of one big breath. And as I'm inhaling again and preparing myself for the smorgasbord of profanity that is about to rain down upon me, sort of scanning the room to make sure there's like nothing in reach that he can grab, he takes what had to be the most pregnant pause, pun intended, that I have ever experienced him take in my life. And he looks up at me from his Quaker Oats, and he says, "Yeah, that's fine, but listen, those fuckers over at PP&L, they've really jacked up the prices. So while you're here, make sure you take short showers because I'm not trying to have a high electric bill this month. This reaction coming from the most reactive man I know. So while the mysteries of my father still run very deep, it does go to show that he does have control in the places where it matters most. As for the remote controls, let's just say it's a damn good thing that the Eagles didn't blow it this year. Thank you.